Okay, Charles, are you ready for the question of the day?
Yeah, what is the question of the day, Mike?
The question of the day is there technology in the new movie, The Harder They Fall? The new Western, The Harder They Fall.
I'm going to cut to the chase, Mike. Without a doubt, there's technology in the harder they fall.
Hey everybody, this is Mike, and you're watching the Real Black Podcast. I'm with,
Charles Woods.
and we're here to share our thoughts about the new movie called.
The harder they fall. Sometimes you may get caught up and say the harder they come, right?
I'm thinking, yeah, well, that's a Jamaican movie,
Yeah.
right, with Jimmy Cliff and all that stuff. So it's very easy to get it mixed up. But yeah, James Samuels, Western film, all black cast. We talked about it a little bit in the last time we did a podcast, which was the White Zeros, Black Hero. I'm sorry, White Heroes, Black Zeros
Mm-hmm.
podcast. And now we've had a chance to see this long anticipated movie. What are your thoughts, Charles?
Um, the initial viewing, I wasn't too impressed, but watching it another time, the spectatorship for me was different.
Right.
The first time, the spectatorship is there's this anxiousness, there's this expectation, and that has a great deal of influence on what you get out of a film. A lot of times you're bringing something to the viewing first before you allow the viewing to give you something.
Right. Yeah. And from our end, this was highly anticipated because we remember when James came to Philly and showed the heart of They Die by Dawn, which was sort of like the prequel to this movie. It was like a 45-minute western with Michael K. Williams, and I think Idris was in it, and Erica Badu, and
Idris wasn't in it,
he
but
wasn't in it.
no, he
Erica
helped
Badu.
contribute to getting that piece done.
Right. So so we were anticipating. I think at least I was. I agree with you. I mean, I didn't think the movie was great shakes until you got to the ending. The last act of the movie was just gangbusters with the shootouts and all that stuff. And leading up to that, I couldn't help but compare it to what I knew already about Stagecoach Mary and say, well, that's not Stagecoach Mary. And what I knew about Bass Reeves and all these different characters. I was trying to orient it to my sense of history instead of letting the story play for itself. The second time I watched the movie, I could enjoy it for what it was trying to do, which was basically make these characters into like the Black Avengers, like superhero characters who had the names of these famous people, but weren't necessarily connected to history, and I could appreciate it more.
Yeah, I think the important thing to note is the fact that what I call the boats,
Mm-hmm.
boats, BOATS, based on a true story. It's fiction. If you're going to watch movies for history, well, you're not going to get much history. But I think it's important if people go to a film and names of personalities are dropped, personalities are presented, and you want to know more about these people, do the research. That's where the learning comes in. So what we didn't have before, we didn't even have these people mentioned, and kudos to Samuel for doing that.
Yeah.
Because when I said the white heroes, black zeros, these people didn't even exist as far as Hollywood is concerned. So now we get these people, the names are dropped. There are a number of books on the black contribution to the West. That's history. People have to get more into research.
Right. And I think, major props to James Samuels, who not only wrote, directed, co produced the movie, but also did all the music in the movie. So, I mean, this is definitely his vision, and I think the movie works as far as action goes. The stunts, the chases, all that stuff is some of the best that I've seen on film. And then if you compare it to what I'm used to seeing on Netflix, this is like 10 times better than the average Netflix movie. So I would highly recommend people check it out. Now, but then coming to your wheelhouse, the major question here is there technology in this film? Is this is there technology in The Harder They Fall?
Yes, from my perspective, you
Yes.
can't go watch movies with blacks in them and not see some technology.
Okay.
And one of the things I said that there's this caveat that is something I'll touch on with another discussion, but I've touched on this before. I don't know if I didn't make it plain with the white heroes, black zeros, but one of the things I wanted to point out is that when you're going to have a black hero, the question is who's going to be the antagonist, who's going to be the villain, and that's one of the paramount reasons why you never had black heroes in motion pictures, because there's always been this concern about white fragility. Um, the idea of if you have this ideology of white supremacy, you can't let the white guy be defeated by a black person.
Mm-hmm.
That's a no-no. That's taboo. So if we look at film and you look at the trajectory of the black hero, let's just stick with the West.
Mm.
We mentioned Sergeant Rutledge, the Buffalo Soldiers. If they come to film, you can have a black hero, Woody Strode playing Sergeant Rutledge, because who are the bad guys? Other people of color. They're fighting Indians. See? So, technology in The Harder They Fall, who are the bad guys?
Well, you have the two black gangs against one another. You have the Love Gang against
The Buck.
the Buck Gang.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's black against black, basically. That's technology. It's what I called the way Hollywood has to navigate the black and white binary. It's how they don't want to produce a film that will have this depiction of black against white.
Yeah. No, I noticed that too. We don't want to give spoilers away because a lot of people haven't seen this yet, or waiting to see it. But there's two instances where Buck goes against white characters and has the opportunity to incite violence. Um, in one sequence, they murder the whites, and then there's another sequence that plays. The technology is very clear, where they avoid any type of violence against white people in the film. I mean, can you speak to that?
Well, I think I have to have a proviso. Spoiler alert.
Okay.
Okay. The thing is this. I did a thing called, when I broke down interracial romance in film, I had 3Ds. Denigration, devastation, and destruction. Now, if you're going to have blacks against whites, we can bring the denigration thing in. Denigration is when you blacken a white character. You make them someone despicable, someone that is so heinous, so reprehensible, that even someone in the white audience, they can accept that if something's done to these people, even if it's a black person doing something. Well, these white people deserved it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's done here in this film. Um, Regina King, her character, maybe the first time you see a black killing a white, and there's something done that precedes her killing the white guy. Something
It's in the trailer.
yeah, okay, it's in the trailer.
Yeah.
So in other words, he's about to use the N word.
Right.
Okay, so we know where you coming from. Boom,
Right.
pop. The other thing is they're going to release Idris Elba's character, Rufus Buck. He's being held prisoner. He's in this, looks like a safe, for safekeeping, all right? But
It's a Black Hannibal Lecter.
yeah, that's basically what
That's how they set it up.
yes,
Yeah.
set it up. So the thing is, who's holding him prisoner? But these soldiers, the U.S. soldiers, and so when Trudy, Regina King's character, comes with Lakeith Cherokee Bill, they come to release him and they say, let him go. Come on, don't want nothing out of you. But there's something they do. Regina King reveals the heinous past or something reprehensible that these white soldiers did. They destroyed a town.
Right. With women and children.
Just for some silver,
Right.
some booty, some bounty. You know what I mean? So now, when she reveals the character of these soldiers, that's establishing that's doing the denigration.
Becomes justifiable for them to kill these people.
Justifiable homicide.
Despite their race, they're despicable. They
Right.
need to be taken off the
Right.
earth. Yeah.
And so I found that interesting. That's technology.
Right. Well, now, is there another way you could do that and still be in an American film? Like, can you? Could he have made that same scene happen without having them denigrated?
Here's what's important. You brought up another scene,
Uh-huh.
which parallels, or I think precisely what it does. It contradicts this scene
Right.
where they're going to rob a bank.
Right. Yes, and that's in the preview on Netflix where he says, "I want you to rob a bank for me because he needs money to start his own mecca, this all black town Idris wants to start." So he sends Jonathan Majors off to rob a bank in a white town because they have more resources apparently.
Yeah. So they go to a white town to get that kind of money, but they do so. How?
They can't harm a fly in the process.
They don't kill anyone in this town. They don't kill anyone in the bank.
That's the objective. They make that part of the game. Like, how are we going to get away with this without hurting anyone?
Well, Nat Love, the character played by Jonathan Majors, he says robbing banks isn't so difficult. Not killing anyone is the difficult part. Okay, so the thing is, here's the parallel. We can kill these white guys because they're reprehensible, but we just can't kill white people
Just for the sake of.
being badasses.
But they can kill the people that rob those banks without any sort of recourse.
Yeah, and so in other words,
As long as they're black.
yes.
Right. So they couldn't. Do you think that they could have shown them? Now we understand the caveat that this is an all black Western and the majority of the characters are going to be black. But could they have robbed a Crimson Hood gang that happened to be mixed or all white and gotten away with it?
What they do is, if let's say, here's the other thing. If we're going to have blacks versus whites, and killing is going to take place, well, the denigration is part of it. But the other way they do it, you have to have white allies to be a part of the black group.
Okay.
So this is what we call the validation thing, where because you have whites on your side, you're validating the act. It's not black against white. Mm-hmm. There's this alliance between blacks and whites against a certain enemy. Case in point, Danny Glover does Silverado. He's going against some guys who racially, they don't want him in the bar, they don't want to serve him anything to drink, and they're going to give him a hard time because he's black. The white guys, who are the good guys, they say, what's about to happen here? Now it's about 4 or 5 white guys against Danny Glover. And the white stars, the white heroes, they say, well, this guy needs some help. No, he says, well, I don't like these odds. So the little joke is, you mean against the white guys? Mm-hmm. But the thing is, you're going to have them working with Danny Glover's character.
Okay.
The same way you take, just to make a point, you take Rocky. Rocky is fighting Apollo. Apollo's black. Rocky's white. What does that engender? It engenders black and white situation. Blacks in the audience are going to root for Apollo. Whites, they're rooting for the underdog, who's in this particular Rocky film is Rocky. The first time they fight, they leave this idea that it could have gone either way.
Right.
But eventually, Rocky's going to defeat Apollo. But what I'm getting to is when Apollo dies or can't fight, when Rocky's going to fight Mr. T, what do they do to Mr. T's character?
Well, they darken him.
They darken him. They make him such a miserable, bad guy where he's annoying and whatnot.
Right.
In other words, you have to bring the acceptance of black folks saying, well, I don't like this guy. I don't care if the white guy beats him.
Right.
That's
so
Tricknology.
the flip side of the coin.
Yes.
So, but the question is, at the opening of the movie, you have the Crimson Hood Gang, which is an all-black band of bank robbers that Nat Love virtually single-handedly, with the assistance of Jim Beckworth,
yeah,
kills the majority of the gang and takes the money. Could that have been an all-white gang or a mixed gang, or it has to be black-on-black crime up until that point in the story, the same way it has to be black-on-black crime at the beginning?
It could be a white gang, but once again, you have to establish the degree of villainy of the whites. You take, for example, and I'm giving examples here. Mm-hmm. You take a film Jim Brown did, Tick, Tick, Tick. He's elected the sheriff of a town that traditionally they don't want anything to do with black folks. Mm-hmm. Now he's a sheriff of a town that's racist. And his first job is to go after some white boy and bring him to justice. But where's the Tricknology? If people remember Tick, 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 if you can get it, the white boy that he goes after is from another town, and in his cavalier attitude, his arrogance, he kills a little white kid. You see? Okay. So what happens is, you don't like his attitude. He's arrogant. He's from another town, and you've killed a kid from our town, and you got no remorse, no one. So the thing is, even though you don't like the idea of a black sheriff having to go after him, there's something that's going to make the whites become allies,
right,
to the black. And one other thing they do, Tricknology with, and I'm giving you some things. The other Tricknology they do with Tick, Tick, Tick. Mm-hmm. The guy he beats Jim Brown's character beats running for sheriff is the former sheriff was the white guy. Now he can't get a job nowhere else, so the only way he can keep having a source of income, he signs on as the deputy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's George Kennedy's character. So when you watch the film, when whites act up, who's taking care of the white guys?
I guess a deputy.
George Kennedy. And who's taking care of the black guys? Like in one part of the film, you have Jim Brown has to go up against Bernie Casey. You know what I mean? Where you do the crime, you're gonna face a tough time. But the thing is, basically, what they did is they had George Kennedy straightening out the racist, real pernicious racist white guy, straightening them out.
Right.
And so the thing is, what they do is they create an alliance. The same thing they did in Black Panther.
Right. Yeah, I was going to get to that. We're talking about the unwritten rules that exist in Hollywood movies. Harder They Fall opened at number one on Netflix. Is the number one movie on Netflix as we speak. And Black Panther was the number one movie that opened in theaters a few years back. And there's similar parallels between the two films in terms of how they use their villains, and how the story is placed in terms of who gets vengeance exacted against them and who does not. Can you speak to that?
The tricknology is this, to cut to the chase. The fact that I call it geographic. GEO graphic. We got graphics, we know what graphics mean. That's the images, whatnot. But the GEO is, it's having your setting ghettoized. The G is for the ghettoization of the blacks.
Mm-hmm.
Black Panther, how was it ghettoized? Wakanda, all black. How is it ghettoized in the harder? They fall.
So all black towns.
All black towns. See, yeah. So because it's ghettoized, yeah, well, you could say it's inevitable. It's something that is going to follow. That you're going to have blacks killing blacks, blacks against blacks. Mm-hmm. In a white town, in a white, if it was all white Western, whites are killing whites.
Yes.
Okay, so it's the ghettoization, the GEO, ghettoization to eliminate offending because of white fragility.
GEO.
What I call geographic is ghettoization to eliminate offending white fragility. We're getting more and more to be a country where people of color are starting to dominate society. And part of the issues surrounding CRT, critical race theory, the fears of the great replacement issues and the tribalism and the polarization that exists in our country today, there is this pronounced fear that we're going to be toppled and pushed aside by this dreaded other, people of color. But as far as film is concerned, film is still made to this day. It's still made where there is this pronounced need to play to the sentiments, the concerns, and the needs of the white audience.
So, engaging on that range, to wrap things up, we look at Harder They Fall as great entertainment, well crafted, well directed, well produced, great soundtrack, and all that stuff. As a black film, where do you think it falls? I mean, because it is making efforts. When you look at interviews with the director, his intention was not only to bring these characters that we've not seen to the forefront, but also to brew the fabric of the film with blackness. And there were some moments in there, like the saloon scene with Alice Smith, I think, where it all congeals and it feels like a very uniquely black experience. I mean, from your perspective, I mean, is this advancing anything, or is this just, as we say, a white western, a white film in blackface?
That's what it is.
Okay,
That's what it is. It's blackface.
okay,
It's. Here's the thing. Let's not, as my boy Paul Mooney used to say, let's not get it twisted. Okay. It's not reality. I just use the term I call geographic. But the other thing is, when they make these films, they don't deal with reality. They don't deal with existential issues. Okay? It's something I'm going to get further into in another discussion, but it's what I call mass mediation, MASS, where the M, metaphorically you deal with something, A, anecdotally, allegorically, S, surrogation, S, substitution. The other way they deal with it is what they call geographical distance or historical distance. Let's deal with this one. Historical distance. Right? It's not present day.
right.
It's in the past. Is it dealing with blacks and whites racially that existed around that time, the 1860s? Where right after the Civil War, you had Reconstruction, and then Hayes pulled all the troops out, and then you have what was called post-Reconstruction. Blacks started losing all the rights they had gained from the 13th Amendment on. You're not getting those stories in these films. These stories are entertainment puffery. It's not dealing with what's going on in the world today. So that's historical distance. Another way they'll deal with what's going on from a mass thing.
Yeah, break down the mass again.
Okay, mass is metaphorically.
Okay.
Metaphor is, meta means change, for form. You change form. During the 50s, a lot of films were about the civil rights movement, but they didn't make who was propelling the civil rights movement. It was blacks fighting for their rights. But when they made these films that were dealing with civil rights issues, they didn't use black folks. Mm-hmm. They used the S part of mass is a surrogate who was the Native American. So you had a film like Broken Arrow. Okay, Broken Arrow dealt with interracial romance, and it dealt with tolerance. A lot of those films during the 50s were dealing with issues of tolerance, where civil rights was about being tolerant, where people had to see people as people. Metaphors, when we're going to discuss the fact that you have, for example, King Kong. King Kong, many people feel, was a metaphor for black people. Okay? Right. Slavery, things like that. Allegory, same thing. Allegory is where allegorically you may not get the during the 50s, one of the biggest allegorical genres, we had what was called the Cold War. We were concerned about the Red Menace, Russia. So you had a new genre that came up, was sci-fi. Now, many people feel that a lot of the equating of the monsters in the sci-fi films, that allegory.
It was an allegory for the Cold War scare.
Yes, but many people say, well, nah, that's over analyzation. It wasn't really the Day of the Triffids or Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It had nothing to do with the Russians and all that. But The thing is this.
The House on American Activities Committee invasion of body snatchers.
What's important is this. Why do you use allegory? Why do you use metaphor? Why do you use surrogation?
Mm-hmm.
Because people have to realize that motion pictures, someone is producing these. Someone's money,
Yeah.
the golden rule.
Right.
And the one thing if you're having issues where, let's say, the Russians are a problem, you don't want a film to come out that say the Russians are a problem. You don't want to scare the population with that kind of imagery. So you play it down. You present it in a covert way, a coded way. See? It's just like if I can't sing about drugs, because that's not going to get what? If I sing, that's not going to get airplay, right?
Yeah.
So I'll do Puff the Magic Dragon.
Okay, back in the 60s, yes.
Right? Or I get by with a little help from my friends.
Yeah.
Okay? Jack and Jill went up the hill. You know who that was about?
What was that?
Marie Antoinette and the king.
Oh, okay.
You know, when Jack falls down, he's beheaded, and Jill came tumbling after. Marie Antoinette followed.
Okay.
You see?
So it's allegory.
Allegory.
Okay. So the next A and ASS.
Yeah, S. Sometimes some people can look at it and say on a denotative sense. You know, you got connotative, denotative, but in a denotative sense, it could be redundant. But the thing is, there are different ways to skin a cat. So metaphor, allegory, animation. Take Walt Disney. He does Dumbo. You got the Crows. Mm-hmm. The leader of the Crow, Jim Crow. Mm-hmm. And they talk jive talk.
Right.
Okay. So the S is substitution or surrogation, where you have someone where you don't have the black, because these films came out around the civil rights time. Mm-hmm. You don't have a black character because it's harder to sell a black character. Mm-hmm. But I can sell you Jimmy Stewart in Broken Arrow, and I can sell you Cochise, played by Jeff Chandler.
Right.
You know that they're playing Jeff Chandler's playing a Native American, but you love Jeff Chandler.
Right. So they can take the experiences that are happening for black people during the civil rights movement and transplant them into a Western genre using the substitution. So, you know, not to take anybody's fun away. I mean, it's you know, in terms of this one, The Harder They Fall, it seems like he avoided a lot of those pitfalls that you're talking about. I mean, he used historical distance and geographical distance to be able to tell more of a fantastic story. He's still playing by the unwritten rules in terms of who can incite violence and who can't, in terms of, as you say, negotiating the binary. But how could this film have been more successful, so to speak, in terms of subverting some of the technology that we've identified in Black Panther and other movies like in Creed, and Straight Outta Compton, where we also have this ghettoization. What, and then how does this compare to a movie like Django?
Okay, here's you use the word. Subversion? Mm-hmm. Subversion is the thing. That's the concern.
Yes.
Okay? You don't want something to be subversive.
Okay. So I'm barking up the wrong tree.
You're barking up the wrong tree. The thing is, this is entertainment. 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 Enter apostrophe tainment. Through what is called escapism, through the art form of motion pictures, you're entering containment, detainment, and the sustainment of white supremacy. You're not getting motion pictures that can be any way, in any shape or form, looked at and have this sense that's a subversive message that's going against the status quo. That's why you had the House Un-American Activities come out and say we have too much infiltration in Hollywood, where these messages, and the biggest fear they had, they didn't give a damn about equality, the issue. They didn't want anything to subvert capitalism, because capitalism is what makes America go. It was a president, he didn't say these words exactly, but the business of America is business. Capitalism is what makes this baby run. Okay? So the thing is, and I tell you a lot of times, is the thing that when you have a movement come about, black is beautiful, how long did that last? You know, we're talking about woke consciousness now, and people are going bug wild. Just look at what they're saying, what happened in Virginia, where McAuliffe lost to Youngin. Youngin played up on this fear of critical race theory, which it's not even taught in Virginia schools. But what happens is the fear. See, the Republicans, and I know a lot of people want to say, Republicans, Democrats, they're just different parts of the same chicken. My point is this. You can't let someone brand you and sell who they want you to be. You have to be able to know all politics is local. You have to know, number one, that if you can't win on ideas, the way these people are running this country, infusion of money and the infusion of race. That's why this country is so divided, so polarized. And I tell a lot of people, you know, Rome fell from within. A lot of people do not study history. You look at this trial that's going on where this young kid had a gun, shot 2 people, killed them, wounded 1. Vigilantism. He has a gun. You look at this Arbery case. Now they only got like 1 black juror. They're going to try to make it look like Arbery was a threat. They're promoting the fact that it's okay to kill certain people. You've otherized them to the point where you have to kill them because you fear for your lives. It's justifiable homicide. No one's paying attention to this because the thing is this. They got a new station coming out, Mike. And I don't want to get mixed up on what they said, but I like the way they're promoting it. We're going to be a news station that is about show and tell, not spin and sell. Motion pictures, the culture of the entertainment industry is not about show and tell. It's not about being historical. It's about being ahistorical. It's about spin and sell. They're spinning and selling a message that helps to perpetuate, propagate the status quo.
Right. So how does this movie, in closing, how does this movie compare to Django? I mean, in terms of technology and messaging.
Well, the big difference is Django. I told you before, I don't think Django would have been able to get off the ground had it not had Tarantino being a white guy. If a black guy, he collaborated with Hudlin, but Tarantino, you know, people want to jump on him, you know, with the N-word and all that kind of stuff. But Django, and I've got some people say, well, Django was BS, but the thing is this, the difference between Django and this film, you had Django killing some white folks. Now, yes, they were some pernicious, villainous, reprehensible people, right? But you didn't have, you had it more historically something that you could say happened. We had white slave masters, and Django's going to try to get his wife. He was a slave. But what did I tell you earlier? That the only way you can have a black kill the whites the way Django did, you have to introduce what?
A good white person, a positive ally.
Ally.
Yeah.
Validation. Validation. See?
Mm-hmm.
In this particular film, they kept it so ghettoized. I mean, even in Black Panther, remember there was
The white CIA agent.
the CIA agent. That's the ally.
Yeah.
Okay? And then what was BS for me is in Black Panther is you're going to give up your strength. You're going to give up
Vibranium.
vibranium because
Okay, we can just leave it right there. All right. So, like, comment, subscribe. I'm supposed to say that from now on. And feel free to leave your comments underneath. We would love to hear what you have to say or what your feelings were about The Harder They Fall.
and I'll tell you, a lot of you know I be looking at the comments. Sometimes I'm getting my butt kicked, but overall, I appreciate the love, and I learned so much from so many of you. And please send in your comments. If you can send something, you don't know the expense that the channel incurs in trying to bring you reasonable content. But the way we can improve our content is to hear from critical people who are not disrespectful. And their commentary is based on informed opinions. A lot of people don't even watch all of the content, and they're ready to jump on you about something. But we love you. The thing is, we keep fighting for authenticity, representation that's based in truth. But white folks have their fantasy, and it's good that we have our fantasy. Not everything is going to be historical. But the thing is, representation in all forms of it, we're entitled to it just like anyone else.